There's several problems. Part of it has to do with a conservative mindset and a conservative worldview, which is non-trivial. It's a moral worldview that's held by a lot of Americans and other folks around the world. And that says that, what's important for them is not being interfered with by anything outside, and they're not going to be interested in any of this. And also in the markets, people who are in short-term profitability and into that, and who live by it, who really believe that that is the good thing in the world, that that's what is important in the world to do economic development, they're not going to be interested in it. So this is a very serious kind of thing. You've got to change, and you don't have like several generations to do this in. You have to somehow figure out how that changes. Now, change works via what is called biconceptualism. I didn't get to that. Biconceptualism is the fact that probably most Americans are partly progressive and partly conservative, and in the same brain, since they have two different moral systems, how does that work? It means they're mutually inhibitory. The activation of one turns the other off. You strengthen one, it weakens the other. Now, there are a lot of conservatives who are what are called moderates. What is a moderate? There is no ideology of the moderate. A moderate is somebody who is mostly conservative but progressive on certain issues. And if you want to address them, you address them with your worldview and your language, strengthening that. That's a very important kind of thing, and that needs to be done. It needs to be done in a significant way and in a consistent way. And then there is a question of what ideas do you have to do that in, and what ideas might they respond to. In the book that's out there, the All New Don't Think of an Elephant, we did change the title a little bit. There's a large section, and by the way, it's also online at The Nation this week, a paper on retaking freedom. Conservatives believe that democracy is about liberty, allowing them to do what they want. Progressives have a belief that is largely unconscious, though consciously stated by Elizabeth Warren regularly, that people care about each other and act through the government to provide public resources for everybody, for business as well as for other things. And you know all those public resources, the roads, the bridges, the electric grid, sewers, and all those things, and education. But moreover, those public resources provide freedom in every issue. That is, if you don't have education, you're not free either to get skills or to learn what the possibilities are for fulfillment in life. If you're not healthy, you're not free. You have cancer, no health care, you're not free. You start going down the list. If you are living in a place with no roads and no sewers, no airports, you're not free to run a business. Now, all of those things are important, and I think moving this to a discussion of what constitutes freedom is crucial, and the environment in every way in which you just heard has everything to do with whether you are free.
Our philosophy is just eliminate all the emissions, and then you'll get the maximum reduction of the CO2 rapidly. But keep in mind that CO2 is only 40% of the global warming problem. So if you can eliminate black carbon emissions, which you can do technically, and it has a much faster feedback, that eliminates 17 to 20% of the warming. So that's the only way you can save the Arctic sea ice. You can't save the Arctic sea ice by eliminating the CO2. You can save it by eliminating black carbon and methane. And so those would be the things you need to focus on all of them simultaneously. But if you're ignoring black carbon or methane, then you're not going to save the Arctic ice, and it'll be a positive feedback that'll be rapid. So the philosophy is try to eliminate, if you can eliminate all the emissions, then you're doing the best you can possibly do. The question is looking at compressed air or pumping water uphill for storage. Yeah, so pumped storage there's a lot of pumped storage in the US already, and so that could grow a little, somewhat. I mean, there are plans to grow it, but there's also other types of storage that are pretty cheap, because compressed air is not, you can only do that in certain places, in caverns that are in certain geographic locations, so it's not that great, but pump storage is good. But underground storage, thermal energy systems, storing heat in soils, ice storage. A lot of stadiums have ice storage around in fact, our university has a big ice cube underneath one of its buildings and uses that to store energy. It's really efficient, really cheap. Wind turbines in the US, according to the Fish and Wildlife Service and the American Bird Conservancy, kill between 40 and 400,000 birds per year, the wind turbines do. So it sounds like a lot, but the Bird Conservancy and the Wildlife Service give numbers for communication towers between 10 and 50 million per year, and cats are about 80 million, buildings are 1 billion birds per year. Now, but the real relevant thing is the comparison. If you don't have wind, what do you have? So there's natural gas and coal, and they kill 10 times more birds per kilowatt hour generated than wind. And nuclear is actually about the same as wind. The vibration thing it's actually a phony issue, because you can look at the property values of there have been several studies now on property values near wind farms, and there's virtually no change. In fact, there is no change statistically in the property values near wind, if you're adjacent to a wind farm. But if you're adjacent to a gas well or coal mining, property values definitely plummet. In fact, it was Rex Tillerson, the CEO of ExxonMobil. He was totally supporting fracking, saying, lay off all these frackers because they're, so good. It's good for the economy. Until there was somebody fracking in his backyard, he filed a lawsuit against them. With solar, you can do either distributed or large scale, and so that you could. But it turns out we actually calculated the rooftop areas of the entire U.S., each state, and even projected 2050 and accounted for parking garages. And you can only power about 8.5% of the U.S. with rooftop solar, even putting on every feasible roof. So you need to, but if you count roadways and put canopies on roads, then you can go a lot further. So you do need these power plants. But as I said, it only takes up 0.44% of the U.S. land to power the entire U.S. in terms of the footprint, and then there's about 2.5% for space for the wind turbines. So we're not talking a lot of land committed for this. I mean, it looks like when you're at a big wind farm, yeah, it looks like it goes on forever. But if you look at the whole U.S., it's actually a pretty small area to power the entire U.S. and you get rid of everything. There's always a trade-off. You're never going to have anything perfect. So the real question is this better than the natural gas? Because you look at all the hundreds of thousands of wells. If you look at satellite image, I showed you that picture of the natural gas wells. That's the alternative.